I know a lot of folks are going to be headed after this amazing conference to this other little gathering that's sprung up alongside DLD in Switzerland. And I think the topic will still be, as it has been for the last years, I've got to do AI, I want to do AI, I don't know how to do AI. I want to talk about the moment we're in right now. I think businesses have been experimenting. I think they're finding some successes, they're finding some struggles, but I want to hear from each of you, because you are all looking at this AI moment from really different lenses. Where do you think we are in terms of enterprise adoption? And then we'll get into sort of what's working and what isn't. But where do you think we are today in terms of enterprise adoption?
I think what we clearly see is that everybody's excited about AI, right? Everybody wants to use AI in the different enterprises around the globe, but the reality is that the productive usage is certainly something which can be improved. Bitkom basically says only 15% of the companies use AI productively. The question is, what are the obstacles for adoption? Because this excitement level is here and there. You clearly see that sometimes the foundations is a challenge, like data, the system landscape. But when we look at the opportunity, it's just phenomenal. I mean, think about a company. We just heard NVIDIA here on the stage. I mean, NVIDIA is using AI for the entire supply chain planning with SAP. So all the complex is optimized, leveraging AI. So it's real, they see the benefit, they optimize, basically embracing AI, which means it's certainly clear that AI is a big topic for all business leaders, and also how to ensure the change management with regards to making it real. Because there's also some fears associated with AI and the usage of AI. But I'm a true believer that the upside is so much more that we really all should collectively embrace AI in basically everything what we do and challenge everybody. Do we already today in our enterprise context use AI?
So not surprisingly, SAP thinks AI is here and we should buy some. Sten, what are you seeing and hearing in your travels and in your work both with the government and with the private sector?
So I'll start with a question. How many of you have a company-wide AI strategy and an implementation plan in place? Raise your hands. Half. Well, the short answer is you should. And one of the key learnings what I took out of leading an MBA program in Copenhagen for a year with ballpark 30 Scandinavian executives was, number one, this is not a technological problem. This is not also a software problem. This is purely a leadership as well as a strategical problem. And I designed this whole year of introducing technologies to CEOs in the lights of seeing where that productivity can flourish. And in reality, we were managing fear and expectations and the pathway through that. So the fear is the biggest obstacle in achieving enterprise AI, and I'll talk about the urgency perhaps a little bit later. So the second question is, what exactly are we talking about? In last presentations, we see super factories, compute centers, LLMs, and etc. And I think that's particularly the fear because it's ungraspable. And in minimum, I think it would be helpful to think of 3 layers. One would be, say, assistive layer, where technologies that come in will assist what we do the best in our everyday life. The second layer I call enhancing layer, whether it's a service enhancement, data enhancement, sales enhancement, legal enhancement, or what if not. And the third one, which we kind of tend to mix up, is the agentic and the generative, which sort of is the bully in the room and takes 99% of your time, but where perhaps the least value actually is. So once you actually break it down, take it to your leadership teams, take it to your government teams or investment teams and say, which pocket we actually want to play in, and where we can deliver value and how we can win. And once you actually start framing that conversation as such, decisions will start happening quite fast.
And Anahita, you're sitting not at the companies developing a bit, but trying to implement it into our world. And the legal is just one of many frameworks that we're trying to fit AI into a very different world. What does it look like from your lens?
So I look at it from 2 lenses. One is the lawyer, the practice group leader using AI, myself and my team. And the other one is observing clients, how they use it. And the excitement is definitely there. And what we call commodity can be replaced quite easily with AI. But when it comes to fast-moving legal areas that I cover, economic sanctions, export controls, things where there's not much data there when it comes to new laws, we're not there yet. So there's just excitement and not really much in the enhanced analysis space. What I would also add is that hallucination is still a key issue in the legal world. So you have to be very prudent in how you use it. But generally speaking, of course, it eases your work on the commodity side.
I think Abraham Lincoln once said that you got to be careful with AI. So I think
I read that too. Yeah.
One of the things I heard both in what you said, Sten, and Thomas, I know we've spoken about this, is, you know, it would be one thing if we were just adopting AI into business and AI was the only thing there. I think of it like driverless cars. Driverless cars would be a much easier problem if we had no humans driving. I think AI in the enterprise is a little bit similar, that, again, some of the reason that we're seeing more success at having it be a co-pilot to humans, enhancing humans, versus agentic and doing things on its own is it's got to fit into a workplace that's made up of humans and workflows. Is that where people are getting stuck today for the most part, or is it not having a strategy, as you said, Sten?
I mean, I fundamentally believe that the challenge, as you pointed it out, is in the enterprise context just more complex. I mean, Anahita talked about hallucinations. Nobody wants hallucinations about a business-critical decision. If you take a critical treasury decision, you need to know it's real, which means it's, again, a human topic. Can I trust AI? Can I trust the outcome of what I see? And that means, for sure, a generic LLM will not help, because it's all generic LLMs are trained on the same public data, which means, by definition, A, there's no differentiation, and B, the business context is missing, which means in the enterprise context, how do I get the proprietary differentiated data of a company into the mix? And that's certainly something where exactly this is the key for enterprise AI. How do we ensure that we embed AI naturally in every business process, but based on the right business data? And this is exactly the key which we need to drive. And then the trust also for AI comes. And also here, there's the questions like, the ISO certification for AI governance is key, because our customers for sure want to trust our AI outcomes. So clearly see also here that regulations on the one hand side can be super positive if they drive the trust for our end users, and that again drives then also adoption. So, but for sure we need to find balance with regulations. But this is something where in the enterprise context it's slightly more complex, but I think we are there to really drive it at scale. Yeah.
And Sten, if it's a human problem, I'm curious, is it the humans at the top that don't have a clear strategy, or is it the resistant workers, or is that too simple a framing?
There's two dimensions to that. First of all is a recognition that having that plan is a question of survival. The Russia word has not been mentioned enough on this stage. And this relates to European enterprise capability. We talk about America, we talk about China, but let's talk about Russia. There is a massive misconception that Russia is a middle-aged state which, operates on brute power. This adversary is innovating real time as we sit here. Also on their autonomous, AI, and all other types of capacities. Their mission is to destroy everything what you see here and everyone who you meet here. So the question having these capabilities on the best tech stack is in Europe, in Germany, in Estonia, elsewhere, is the question of our societal survival. And that needs to be accepted in the boardroom. This is not a military question. This is not a government question. This is a question for you as an enterprise leader. And are you really ready? And having that autonomous capability, that decision-making capability, the AI power that is equally important as a soft power and as a hard power and as an industrial power is absolutely essential. Europe has the companies to do that, whether it's SIP, whether it's Mistral, whether it's Aleph Alpha, and etc. My question to you as a leader is, what are you waiting for? So that is the leadership decision what you have to take.
And Anahita, how much do geopolitics play into this, as well as regulation? We haven't, I think we set a record. We've made it 8 minutes in, and we haven't said the word regulation, so.
I tried. I would really highlight that look at the other side too. Look at the Ukrainians, how innovative they are and how strong they are. So sometimes...
Perfectly right.
Yes, thank you. So you really see it's also needs-based sometimes, where you drive down regulation because you have to. So I think it's really an intersectionality there that you can see between geopolitics and regulation. So geopolitics plays a big role, the need plays a really big role. And if I now can talk about regulation a little bit, there is certainly a trend around the buzzword, we need more deregulation. And I think Thomas hinted and alluded to that clearly, that of course sometimes we have overdone it. You need to make sure that on balance you don't kill innovation at the outset, but at the same time, don't you want to feel safe and secure? Imagine you are a victim. Imagine you're the victim of the nudifying app. Wouldn't you want someone to be responsible? Someone that, you can, refer to and say, you are actually responsible for this. Don't you want to have transparency around who is dealing with your data? This doesn't mean that we didn't overdo it sometimes. This doesn't mean that I, too, criticize very openly members of parliament saying, we need to have clear guidance. What is actually what we need to do? We want to comply, but we don't understand the laws clearly. But there needs to be a balance because it's also a question of trust.
Right.
If you look at the big innovations, if you look at, for example, how secure you feel when you fly, that is also because we have regulation. Let's be honest. Would you actually step on an airplane without that?
And to your point, no, I wouldn't. And to your point, if you take the Elon Musk X example, I think there was actually rare uniform sensibility around the world. We don't want non-consensual nude imagery. I think that was the first time in the AI discussion I think I heard pretty unanimously. It was like the whole world saying no, and Elon and some pals that were putting everyone in bikinis saying yes. But a lot of the questions are more subtle around regulation. At the same time, this technology is so powerful. And I'm curious, is a lack of trust also at play here when we talk about enterprise adoption? Are businesses worried about moving too fast because they are going to be held responsible? Just like, we hear about it in the law because an individual lawyer is held accountable for those made-up citations. Is that same factor playing in at the enterprise?
So this is a really interesting case. So I can give a little bit of a scoop that Estonia as a country is moving right now on quite an ambitious path. Some announcements will follow. But we are progressing very rapidly towards AI-driven, resilient, and agentic state. This is where actually governments in deregulation and regulation can play a part because we have, or they have, validated data. Which means is that we will be able to account for the hallucinations, and we would have then companies, whether it's SAP or anyone else, come in and deploy that agentic layer, which you are the best at. What we're aiming to achieve in that space, first of all, there is a public consensus of trust. Estonia's vision has been, for the last 25 years, no backdoors whatsoever. No misuse of public data. Great data provenance, corporations can build, lawyers are happy. Number two, in order to have our societies and businesses to function, it's clear to us that governments cannot do everything else. So we need to outsource. The more publicly outsourced AI tech and enterprise tech we have on board, and we have companies to build that, the better for everyone. I would estimate that about 80% of government services can be automated. Everything around relocation, permits, document assistance, and etc. European digital wallet was discussed here a lot of times. We will have a single log on data again that provides provenance well enough. The third component, resilience. What we need to build here in enterprise is a dual stack. That means that we are having a local compute, provided that cables are snapping like spaghetti in the Baltic Sea, pun intended, that we can have that compute locally, but we also have a cloud edge where we can, for example, have really great frenemy models. And obviously, finally, it all basically is based on the public trust. So that's something that we're looking to achieve in the next sort of 5 to 7 years, with a massive boost also to the enterprise as well as the citizens as customers.
And to your point, I mean, we want that automation. We want these services to be delivered. I mean, LLMs are great at taking information and translating it and spreading it and making it more available and making it more personal. But I do wonder, from each of you, how concerned are you that we start handing decision-making power over to these algorithms that, as impressive as they are, they still don't have a truth at the basis. They've read a lot, but there's not something they hold as true, and they're not necessarily able to explain why they made the decision that they made. Are we comfortable with a world in which they're deciding who gets a loan, who gets into what school, when we can't even explain it? I'm curious what each of you think.
I mean, first and foremost, I believe technology are made by people, by humans. We should not forget that. And I truly believe that actually the future is not written by AI, but by us. And having said that, that for sure requires that we responsibly, with purpose, build up these massive, powerful systems which we have. And with regards to this decision-making in that context, that even more brings the topic around what kind of data and how do you want to use that together with the respective LLMs. And that's to your point, I absolutely believe we can build these powerful systems responsibly. That's exactly what we do in that sense. And just to add to that point, I also believe we should be super proud what we have here, actually. Sometimes we talk so much about US and China, and it's all great. We should not forget the technology players we have and the combination like Mistral, SAP together, building Aleph Alpha, building together a sovereign AI for Europe, and we are privileged and proud to take our part in sovereignty here, and that's something which is also clearly important. But we need to do it, and we need to embrace it, and that's way more quicker, because that also will basically the decision how competitive every single enterprise, every nation will be in the future, about how quickly we embrace those powerful tools and technology, because there again, the US, China, Asia, they use it. They will run. The question is, how quickly do we also embrace it?
Anahita, how comfortable would you be? Your next case, instead of arguing before a judge or a jury, you have a great LLM trained on every bit of legal case history. How comfortable are you if AI is the judge?
Not comfortable at all. And the reason for that is that the biases that we do see in decision makings is still huge. I mean, of course, judges do have their biases too, let's be honest, right? And there are studies around if you are put in front of a judge before lunch and after lunch. I don't want to go into the details, but human beings have their own biases too. But overall, I would prefer that judge to be assisted by AI, just as we are doing the same thing around, when you go to a doctor. I would still have the doctor, and I would like him to be consulting AI. That's what I would say would also be waterproof around a good governance that I would see. But no, an AI just making the judgment, I do not see that as a comfortable situation to be in.
And you talked about sovereignty. You both actually, Sten and Thomas, talked about sovereignty. How much, historically, that argument, there's been I've been coming to DLD for more than a decade, and it's always, well, Europeans should value European tech companies just for the sake of being European. And that didn't necessarily get a huge audience. I'm wondering if it's starting to get a larger audience with some of the, what's a nice way of saying it? Creativity going on in the United States government right now.
I would challenge, I mean, first of all, I would challenge you a little bit on the buy it for European for the sake of European. That's what not should happen, actually. We should buy European tech because we are superior and have competitive solutions which are competitive globally. Because that's what we need to aspire to have global champions. We should not make us smaller to say we buy a European piece of technology because it's European. We should have the pride to build globally competitive solutions, and that's what we need. And that also strengthens in the conversation you hinted to. The more strengths you have and more global successful players, you have a different way of negotiating conversation. We also need to talk philosophically about mutual dependencies, which we also have, which we sometimes forget in this conversation as well. And that's something where I believe we need more globally competitive solutions. We don't need German solutions for Germany which would not perform out elsewhere. That would also limit already the entire capability. So I believe we should be proud, globally competitive to be.
Sten, you get the last word.
Thank you. I personally think that the game is really starting. We've not even started to sort of run towards the direction. We have unique verticals where we can play along. First of all is trusted solutions, as we have the backend for it. The second is dual use. This is the vertical where we're having quite a great presence, whether you think about Helsing, whether again you think about Mistral's deployments and anything else. This is the area where we're doing excellent work and Godspeed ahead. So number two. And number three, what I would say, and if I have the final word, you know, I always be reminded of Melvin Kranzberg and his great laws of technology. And his final law is that every discussion about technology is a human question rather than a technological question. So the call out here is go and make these wise decisions, have an AI strategy, and make it work for your enterprise.
Well, let's leave things there. Anahita, Sten, Thomas, thank you so much for a great discussion.